Welcome everybody to another Aftermarket Hangout. Today's topic is Time's Up, a look at acquiring expired domain names. I'm Brian Cowan. I've been with our Aftermarket 5 years. Most of you may recognize Joe Styler. You want to introduce yourself?
My name is Joe Styler. I'm the product manager for the Aftermarket at GoDaddy. So any of the GoDaddy Aftermarket things that you see, if you have questions, let me know. I'm happy to help out. And I've been at GoDaddy for about 8 years.
My name is Wes Fullington. I'm a GoDaddy domain broker in the aftermarket, and I've worked in the domain aftermarket for about 6-7 years, roughly. Many different avenues. Currently, I'm brokering domains, but I do have a lot of knowledge on expiring domains, and how our auction system works, and as well as back orders.
So the bulk of what we'll be covering today is back orders, how they work. When they work, when you get a domain, when it's captured by a back order, and sneaking a peek at our expired auctions and how to navigate your way through that. Just a quick synopsis for anybody that expired domains may be new to them. I would compare that somewhat to antiquing. It's stuff that people had at one point, they're no longer using. It may be of high value to somebody for a wide variety of reasons. There may be built-in value from the previous owner. It may be that it's a perfect match for your business that wasn't available because somebody else had it for years. So we're going to teach people how to take a look at that, and then we'll also have some advanced tips for our power users towards the end of this. So let's jump right in.
Well, what I'd like to start off today is basically what we call the life cycle of a domain after its expiration. A lot of questions I get from my clients and customers are basically they want a domain, they see that it expired, and they want to acquire that domain. However, once a domain expires, it's not available immediately. And what I'd like to do today is just get a little clarification on that life cycle, when a domain's available, when a back order may become important, and what dates that domain will actually be available to you. Generally what happens is once a domain expires, the customer's been notified, the original registrant's been notified. And what we'll do is we'll list the domain on our auction 26 days after that expiration date. The domain will reside on our auction, our standard auction, for 10 days. Basically, after that first 10 days, if there's no bidders, we'll move it to what's called a closeout auction. And that closeout auction will be the domain will be listed for 5 days. Generally, that's 36 days. After its expiration, the closeout auction will start. The domain will be listed for less of a price than it would be on a standard auction. As you can see the little graph I have up here, again, day 26 is the start of the domain auction. Domain's listed for 10 days. During that time, anybody has a chance to bid on the domain. During that time, the domain basically will be awarded to the high bidder. If no one wins that auction, and there's no back order present, we'll move the domain to what's called a closeout auction, and that's day 36. So that domain will be listed for 35 days. During that time, we'll gradually decrease the price until there's a winner. If no winner, on day 43, the domain gets released back to the registry. Basically, after that 43 days, there's really nothing GoDaddy can do. The original registrant can redeem the domain, but that domain's getting dropped, what we call dropped back to the registry. It will reside there for a period of time. There's a little more after day 43 that I'd like to get into, but first, what I'd like to talk about is the two types of back orders that we offer. First type is a standard back order, what we call pre-release. Pre-release domains are domains within the GoDaddy network that are listed available for sale prior to that 43 days that will get listed on our auction. What our system will do is it will check to see if there's available back order on the domain. If there is, we'll automatically put that bid on the domain. It'll be a $10 bid. That bid will go, or is it $12? I believe it's
$10 if the back order is already on it when it goes to auction.
And I'd like to also mention the back. What's nice about the back order is it does include the bid price as well as the registration price. So the pre-release back order that we have, if there's an established back order, that you will get that open-in bid. During that 10 days, if there's no other high bidder, on day 36 you will be awarded that domain. So that's key to remember. What I tell a lot of my clients to do is, purchase the back. If they have an interest in a domain, to purchase the back order. That way, what's nice about that, it'll monitor it, give you the time frames, let you know the dates. So let's say during the 26th day the auction starts, we have a back order. That $10 bid will be placed. If there's no high bidders, no one else bid on the domain, that domain will be awarded to the back order holder. That's after day 36.
And to be clear on that, the day 36 is when the auction would end.
Day 36 is when the auction will end.
Delivery would take place on day
42, delivery of the actual domain will take a few more days, but it will be 43 days after expiration. If you have that graph up, I'll show you real quick. Those 3 dates, day 26, day 30, day 26, day 36, I think it's the other one.
Which one?
The first one that you had up. One more. There you go. Well, basically, day 26 is an important date. That's when the auction starts. Day 36 is the end of the auction. Day 43 is the date the actual domain will go to the registrant.
There we go.
There you go. So better look at that. And it's confusing for the people that don't know how to buy these domains. You know, that's a lot of the question. They want to know when to buy the domain and when they can get it. I think it's very beneficial to know the true expiration of the life cycle of the domain. I mentioned our standard back orders, which are called pre-release domains. Basically, like I said, the domains listed within the GoDaddy network, they get listed on our auction. After day 43, if you do still want to acquire a domain, you can still, the best chance of getting the domain would be to place a back order on the domain. That would be what we would call a pen and delete back order. That is after day 43, once the domain's getting released back to the registry. However, on day 43, the domain's still not available. What will happen, it still has about another 30 days to go through the redemption period. Generally, those types of domains will be available for everybody to register it. You can go online roughly about 75 days after its expiration, where you can go and type it and try to register it manually. However, with our back orders, what they'll do, our system will ping the registry after 75 days during the drop, what we call the drop. That is when the domains are getting released from the registry. Our back orders, our system will try to ping the registry and grab that domain for you. It's a lot easier for our computers to grab the domain than somebody going after the domain. Typically, also if it's a popular domain, you're going to want our computers going after it than trying to manually get the domain.
What's the registry?
Registry is basically, mainly what I'm talking about are .com domains, .nets, .orgs. .me's, .co's, the main ones, the most popular ones. I know we have a lot of GTLDs out these days, but mainly the focus here on those types of domains, the .coms, the standard TLDs. But the registry is basically the wholesale, the people that own the domains that release them. They control all the .coms, all the root registries. They're the ones that release those domains to a registrar, which would be GoDaddy.
Okay.
Registrant would be someone like you, an individual customer would be a registrant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Getting into the back orders, one of the pieces that I saw that was outside of that was the closeouts themselves, and those are set prices. That actually takes place, as Wes alluded to, the expired domain auction starts on day 26, concludes on day 36. Day 36 is when we begin our closeout phase, which means if there was no back order placed, if there were no bids at auction, it goes to a closeout, and a closeout is a set price buy now. Basically, you get to go in that, and it moves in descending order, declining price. So it'll be at one price point one day. If nobody bids on it, it'll decline in price all the way down until the closeout period ends, and that's the day before we release it to the registry. So once that day 42 hits, GoDaddy has no more claim to it than really anybody else.
Yeah, usually on the
43rd
day, the domain's going back to the registry. The only way to get the domain would be the original registrant, which is the customer, redeeming that domain. And after that day 43, the domain will be available to the general public for about 35 days afterwards, 30 days. I find it between 75, 80 days, it'll get released back to the registry.
Mm-hmm. So this is basically just the process for names that expire at GoDaddy?
This is the main thing to be concerned about is domains with GoDaddy. You have up to 43 days, up to that day 43 passes registration to acquire the domain through our auction. You could still acquire through a back order after day 43, but that's going to be what's called the drop catch back order. Mm-hmm. That's a little different than our in-house back orders. That's where everybody, every registrar, every customer can try to grab it on that day 75. But what's nice about a back order, what that will do, our system will ping the registry and try to grab it before any person can manually go in there and register the domain.
Okay, and I think it's kind of important to bring up that if you're really interested in a domain name and you want to get it when it expires, that you understand where it's registered. Because if it's registered at GoDaddy, then obviously you want to use our back order and you want to be involved in our auction so you can get the name. But if the name's registered somewhere else, then it's important to understand where they put the names up for auction or for sale prior to your back order being able to catch it at GoDaddy. Everyone has, almost every company that registers names has a set path where they allow people to go for those pre-release names. It's basically your first chance to get the name, and you have to be at the right auction house or use the right back order company to be able to have that first chance to get the name. And then after that, then it's going to go to the general public, what we call drop catch, and then you have a second chance to get it. So if it's a really good name, chances are it's not going to get to that second phase, and you really need to get into the first position in line. So if you're looking to buy a name that expired that was registered at GoDaddy, then you want to use our back order. And if the name is not at GoDaddy, then you should contact us so we can point you in the right direction to help you get that name and then transfer it over to us.
Yeah, we're always willing to help any customer out. The most important thing we think is that they get the domain they want.
Right.
Something you touched on, Lear, and I know you have some valuable insight into this, is the monitoring piece that comes with our back orders. Did either one of you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, one important thing I think about buying the back order is that it gives you an update on the name. So if I wanted to buy Wes.com and I know that the name's going to expire in 6 months from now, it'll let me know really important things about the name. It's going to let me know if it goes to auction at GoDaddy, so I can go get involved in the auction. Even if I'm not the first person to put the back order on and I don't get that bid, it's going to tell me, hey, it's at auction, go bid. And I'll still get some credit for that from the back order. So that's an important thing to let me know. But another thing it lets me know is if Wes used to own Wes.com and he sold it to Brian, it's going to give me an update and say, hey, there's a change. Wes doesn't own the name anymore. The registrant changed. It's now Brian. So if you were trying to contact Wes before to get you, the name from him, now there's somebody else who owns it. Maybe you should try and contact them and buy it from them. Or you could see if the name servers change, which that means where the name is pointed, the domain name. What website is pointed to or parking service is pointed to, that might change, and that might be indicative of maybe a change of heart on the person who owns the name to be open to sell the name, or maybe somebody else in the company has come in and taken over that position and they're changing the name around. So it's a fresh point of contact. If you have a back order with us, it's going to tell you all those things as part of our monitoring service, and those are really good things to know if you're keeping an eye on your own name. To see if anything changes with your own name, or if there's a name that you really want to try and buy, to be able to use that to your advantage.
That's a good point with the monitoring. And a lot of my clients that we're not successful contacting the registrant, whether if we're doing a broker deal or through our domain buy service, I'll point out the monitoring for them, and sometimes I'll come back a year later, and even if the domain doesn't expire in a year or two, they'll come back to me. They'll have the monitor on and they'll say, hey, look, Wes, this changed. Can you give me a little insight? And then I'll be like, yeah, you'll notice, the domain will become available, or a new registrant or a domainer might own it that is more willing to sell than possibly an end user.
One of the things I like about the bulk of monitoring, even with just one back order, is that you can monitor them, and as they kind of come up for expiration or renewal, back orders are versatile. They're not tied to just the one domain name, so you can actually bounce that back order credit off of whatever domain names are coming up for expiry and that sort of thing. So you can sort of play all of that with just a handful of back orders or even a single one, and kind of use it until it succeeds in grabbing a domain for you. Having that. I want to talk about sort of the value of our back orders and where ours fall in the within the stream of competitors and things like that. There's a wide variety of places that you can place a back order, but when is it that a GoDaddy back order is at its most valuable? Do you want to talk to that?
Sure. There's two key things to remember that Wes brought up. If you want to buy a name that's expiring, there's really two phases that it goes through no matter where it expires. There's the pre-release phase, which is where you're going to get the first chance at the name, and then there's the drop, where you're going to get the second chance at the name before it goes out for general registration. So the important thing is, if it's a name that you really want to get, that you get to be first in line. And to do that, you need to get wherever that pre-release phase is going to be. If the name was registered at GoDaddy and expires at GoDaddy, then your best chance is to buy a GoDaddy backorder, because it's going to alert you to the fact that it's going to auction. Not only does it do that, it gives you a credit, which Wes alluded to, but I'll explain a little more. It's going to give you a credit to renew the name, because obviously the name expired. That's why it's going for sale. So it needs to be renewed for at least another year. The backorder credit right now is just under $21 for one of those credits. To renew a .com, for instance, is about $15, and if you want to renew a .net or .org, it's a little bit more. So you're going to spend $21, and you're going to get a $10 bid credit towards your bidding on that name, and you're also going to get the free renewal along with that. So right there on a .com, you're getting about $25 worth of value for just just under $21. So that's really, it's a little bit of a discount, and it gives you a heads up when the name goes for sale, which I think is really the important thing. If you have a name that's expiring at another company, let's say it's expiring at Network Solutions or Enom or another third-party company, then you want to get to a company that's going to give you the pre-release name for that. You're going to have to try and go to get the backorder at the place that's going to put you first in line. Using our backorder for a name that expires at another company is only going to give you access to that second phase where it goes out to the general public, and there's a lot more competitors. I'd like to think of it as kind of you're in line when a big concert comes out and you're trying to get tickets through Ticketmaster. Everybody's trying to get in there randomly, and they just put you in line when there's hundreds and hundreds of people, and literally there's going to be hundreds and hundreds of tries to try and get a popular name. So you might have your backorder with GoDaddy, but there's a lot of other companies that might be trying to get that for other people, or maybe other people are buying backorders all over the place, and you want to try and figure out a good strategy to capture that name. But your best bet to avoid that is to go to the front of the line and try it a pre-release. So if it's a name that's expiring at GoDaddy, you want to buy a backorder with us, because it's going to give you those alerts, let you know what's happening with the name, let you know when it's at auction, and give you a discount.
And keep in mind, as long as it's 43 days before it's before it past its expiration,
right,
you have the best chance. And also, GoDaddy does allow multiple back orders during that 43-day process. So it's important during that 10-day auction that you are the high bidder at that end of that auction.
I've never heard that correlation between that and an on sale for a concert. I really like that as a solid breakdown, and kind of the idea that the pre-release being sort of like your pre-sale opportunities, when you've got something that's through the venue, or you get a code and you get to be first in line before competing with the entire space and against other registrars. So that's good. I like that.
Yeah, all the life cycle is set by ICANN, the governing body of domain names. So each registrar does have to follow a set guideline set by them.
So I think we alluded to some tips for some pro users. Do we have some stuff that we haven't covered so far that's for some of the advanced users?
Yeah,
Are we comfortable with what we shared? I guess before we get to that, I think we've given a good.
The dates are tricky. It's just important to know the dates when it's available with GoDaddy, when it will be a drop catch back order where everybody, every registrar, every person will be able to acquire that domain. So I think it's just keep in mind what the dates. I think that's.
You want to talk about for you?
On what you guys talked about so far. So we did have a question from Ray King. He just wants to know, will this process essentially be the same for all the new TLDs that are coming in?
That's still being worked out, right?
Yeah, it is.
The renewal rates and
there's some
like that.
There's some things that we're trying to work through as far as catching the new names that come out. I expect it to be resolved on our side within the next year. It's something that we definitely have in scope for us to get back orders and some further advancements in our auction to be able to sell those new TLDs. There is definitely going to be a pre-release, an advantage to get a name at a place where it expired versus the drop. And as far as the pricing, there's some variable pricing on names, so that's something that we need to address before we figure out how we can best capture your name for you. For example, Wes.com, and this is just an example, might be worth $50 to renew every year, and Brian.com might come in at $150 to renew every year with these new TLDs. And once that name drops, the registry, the place that owns these, that keeps a record of it, might decide that Brian's now worth $175 after it expired to buy and renew every year, and Wes might be going up to $125. So those are some variables that we're working through, and we'll have them fixed by, figured out, and we'll work with the registries. We're good partners with everybody, and I'm sure that they'll be happy to help us sell their names, which is one of the things we really want to do. But at the end of the day, which brings an important point up, we want to help people get names, and that's why we're doing this. We want to make sure that you're going to have the right name for your business. And if you're buying it as an investment, we want to help you with your investment business. If you're buying it for a storefront, we want to make sure you're getting it for that. We want to put the right names in the right hands of people that are going to use them and be able to make a profit on them. We want you to be successful, and that's one of the reasons why we have that time period before we award the name to the person who won the bid. Our first goal is, if you built a business on that name, we're going to say, hey, go renew your name, go renew it. We really want you to renew it, and we give them a lot of chances to renew that name. After 42 days, we figure that they're probably not going to renew it, and at that point, we're going to give it to somebody else. But our first goal is to get it back in the hands of the person that worked on it, and after that, we want to get it out to another customer who's going to be able to use that profitably if Wes isn't going to use his name anymore. So I hope that answers your question.
And kind of the go-between before getting it to somebody else is that we want to keep it sort of in the GoDaddy house. That if you're already a customer here, that you would have dibs on that before it gets released to the general public or to somewhere else. So, first priority being the original registrant, and then second being somebody else at GoDaddy that could put the domain to good use. So,
Page houses, that's a good point. He's just curious, like broadly, is there a place for in private seller auctions for renewal rate? I don't know if that makes sense to you guys.
Yeah, actually, that is something that I was just on a call yesterday about, for us to work out a way to do that, and it's something that we're actively looking at. Again, for next year, this year's running out soon, but it is on our plate, and it's a high priority for us to figure out for next year, and we want to get that going.
And hi, Paige.
Yeah, it's good to hear from you, Paige.
That's it for now on that topic.
There was one site that I used to it might help people out. It's if you want to find the date the actual domain is going to drop. I use a site called freewho.com. There's a tab on there, status check. It's kind of an older site, but it does a really good job. It'll show you the exact date the domain will be dropping, getting released from the registry. You could use that date to plan ahead. If you want to put a back order maybe the day before or a couple hours before that, I wouldn't recommend doing it less than 2 hours before that drop date if you're going to put the back order in.
And that value comes into the pending delete phase.
Yeah,
it's not really going to know much about the pre-release, because the pre-release is different.
Yeah, this is
registrar to registrar basis.
These are the pending deletes, the drop catches, the domains getting released from the registry.
All right. You ready to dive into some power user tips?
Yeah, before we get into a power user tip, I think a good tip to let people know is, if you put a back order on a name, it's going to let you know that the name's up for auction. It's going to give you the time frame. It's going to tell you when the auction ends, and it's going to let you know if you're the high bidder or not. So those are all important things for you to know. One thing to keep in mind is you might not be the only person who's interested in that name. So if there's other people that are interested in the name, it's a really good idea, if this is an important name for you, to keep an eye on the auction until the very end. We're going to send out a letter in an email saying, hey, you were outbid, but if you're outbid in the last minute or so, chances of you getting that email, going to log in and rebid are slim to none. So it's always a good idea, if you have an important name that you want to build your business on, that you keep an eye on it right to the very end, and you can put in a proxy bid. You could put in $7,000 if you want. If the bid's at $10 and somebody tries to outbid you at $15, it's going to automatically bid $20. It's not going to bid $7,000. So it'll just bid to the next increment. That's one option, and the other option is always keep an eye on it, because you don't want to go through all that wait and excitement, and it's a year and a half later and you've been watching this name, and now you're down to the final couple minutes and you think you have it, and then somebody outbids you. That's very disappointing. We see that happen, and we want to just make sure that to keep an eye on it, because we want you to get that name if it's something you're interested in.
Can you repeat that URL you were talking about a minute ago?
It's freewho, WHEEWHO.com. Basically it's a Who Is query site. Very top, there's a status link, status button. You press that, enter the domain, and it'll give you the drop date.
it was an important point to point out. Take advantage of the proxy bidding system.
Yes.
If domain's at expired auction, you've been waiting on it, it's going to go it's in the middle of that auction. Place a bid to protect yourself from that. It's very common in online auctions that the majority of the bidding happens towards the end, so that's not.
It's a lot of
that's pretty commonplace.
A lot of customers are aware that they do get that opening bid, and if they're outbid, they need to go back. So it's definitely
it's important.
Also, like I said, if there's multiple back orders, if you're the second back order purchaser, you won't get that first bid. So it's important to go ahead and still be that high bidder, even if there are multiple back orders.
One thing that we like to do, and this goes into being more of a pro tip, is we like to try and protect our customers. So one of the things that we do is we don't show all the back orders that are placed, and there's different philosophies on that. But the reason why we don't do it is we don't want to tip off other people that are looking at the names that maybe, hey, this name has a lot of interest in it, so we're going to add a couple more people that are interested in buying it. So right now what we do is if there's a back order on the name, then we're going to put that first bid in for you if you're the first back order holder. If there's 10 back orders in the name, whoever put in the first back order, time-wise, if I put it in last month and everybody put it in, last week, I'm going to get that first bid. But it's only going to show one bid. So it's not really a very accurate way to gauge the amount of interest that a name has. It might have 10 other people that also put back orders in, but you're only going to see that first bid. So why is that an advantage? It's an advantage for you to have the back order on it for a couple different reasons. Like we mentioned, the monitoring is very important for you to be able to know that the name went to auction. But there's also another way that you can use the back orders, and that's to help discount what your final price is. We have price breaks at different points. So the first, if you're buying one back order up to 19, right now you're going to pay just under $21. But there's a price break if you're buying 20 to 50, and then there's a price break from 50 to 100, and then there's a price break from 100 and up. And if you're going, any of those drops about $2 each one, so that you're down to about $16, a little under 17 by the time you get to over 100. So if you do the math, that can quickly add up if you're buying a lot of names. If you have a back order and you only paid $17 for it, and the cost of renewal is $15 for a com, or maybe close to $17 for an org or a net, then you covered your renewal cost just by buying the back order, plus you get a bid credit, which we alluded to before, and let me explain how that works. So there's 3 people that are all bidding on the name, and I put a back order in, and Wes and Brian didn't put the back order in. And we're all bidding on Wes.com, and it goes up to $150, and I win. I won. I had the back order on it. When I go to check out, normally what would happen is it would be $150 plus the renewal, so I'm looking at, let's say, $165. It's $15 for the renewal plus $150 that I won. If I had the back order credit on it, then I get a $10 bid credit, so it would make my final payment that I have to pay $140 because it subtracts out some of the credit that I got from the back order, and I don't have to pay for the renewal. So instead of paying $165 out the door, I'm paying $140 out the door, and I paid, let's say, $17 up front. So it was really $157 total out of pocket to me versus $165. That's a little bit of savings, but over a course of 100 names, that adds up.
Yes.
So that's an important thing to keep in mind.
Your power user tip actually reminded me of a tip for beginners as well. The scenario that you gave about having 10 back order holders and there only being one bid. The original back order holder, the person who put the back order in first, they're going to wind up having that first bid in, and the domain's going to show up in their bidding list. The other 9 back order holders, it doesn't show up in their bidding list because their bid isn't in place yet, because that bid only went to the first back order holder. So instead it'll show up in your watch list. So you'll be able to find it there. You'll still be able to place the bids, but you'll have to outbid that original bid, and you'll still get the credit for the $10 original bid and the renewal fee. But for first-time users, it's good to know that that's where you're going to find that stuff is in your watch list.
Also, does our Domain Discount Club offer free back orders and monitoring still? I know we had that.
It doesn't offer free back orders, but there is free monitoring that comes with the back orders. And I believe it's 100 credits. I didn't bring that up because I'm not sure how many credits we're giving out exactly, but we do give out a lot of credits for either free or next to nothing. And that helps if you're interested in a lot of names.
There's a couple questions on the bidding process. So Scott Winthroff wants to know, how fast does the notification system work for the bidding process?
Well, we send out an email right away. However, there could be backups along the way for various reasons. The databases could be backed up, which is rare, but it could happen. And then once we send it out, there could be queuing even on your ISP side or your email provider side. So for it to get there, we send it out pretty much instantly. It's very rare that our databases are backed up. So we send it, but once it gets sent, there's other variables along the way that we can't control. And even in best case scenario, if you're waiting until the last second to bid, you're not going to have time to go rebid. So
best practice would be to be logged into your GoDaddy account at the end of the auction, placing the bid.
And then someone would like to know, can you review quickly whether any bid adds 5 minutes or if it just outbids?
If
it's
a bid in the final 5 minutes will add an additional 5 minutes.
If they're outbid,
if the lead changes, which is another reason why it's important to proxy bid. So we only add extra time on the end of the auction if there's a lead change. So if I put in a $7,000 proxy bid and the bid's up to $35, and Brian comes in at the last minute and he bids an extra $5 and it goes to $40, I'm still the winner. It's going to go to $45, but the lead didn't change. I'm still the leader, so we don't add any extra time. So the auction just closes and Brian loses out.
So bidder one, bidder one still remains the high bidder. Then that.
So you don't have to worry about the proxy.
Auto extend does not come into play.
Right. The lead has to change.
Good to know.
In that case, Brian would have had to outbid my proxy bid, $7,050, and then the lead would have changed, and we added a couple extra minutes.
That's nice of GoDaddy not to jump up.
And it makes sense. That way you're not drawing it up on the
proxy bid.
That was a good question.
Nice. Did you say we had a few more, Colby?
I think that's it for right now.
Okay. I'd like to explain the variables that can occur between a GoDaddy backorder and a WWD backorder, Wild West Domains. So we have a reseller program that also sells backorders, and it's underneath our umbrella. And we get a question from users a lot. What's the difference between buying a WWD backorder from any one of the resellers, or my own reseller that I bought, or buying a GoDaddy backorder? How do they work and why are they different? It gets a little complex, but I'll give you the general overview of it, and if you have other questions about it, I'd be happy to answer. We really want to do our best to try and grab the name and get it to the person who deserves the name, and that's the overall guiding principle that we follow along anything in our auctions. So if I were to place a back order through Wild West Domains, it does not show up to me that it's at the auction because we have a contract in place with GoDaddy, saying with the reseller that saying we're not going to mention GoDaddy. We don't want to, compete with your business, your reseller business, by advertising GoDaddy to your customers. So we don't actively direct your customers to our auction, which is GoDaddy branded. It's auctions.godaddy.com, and it's called GoDaddy Auctions, and we don't want to have a person who bought a reseller and marketed to their customers, have their customers buy a backorder and then point them back to GoDaddy and go, oh, well, I guess this is all part of GoDaddy. Let me start shopping there instead. We don't want to take their customers. So for that reason, we don't point a WWD backorder holder to the fact that there is an auction. There's no alert if you have an auction started at GoDaddy that on your WWD backorder. If you have a GoDaddy backorder, you're going to get that alert. You're going to know, and you're going to have the bid placed. It's going to be in your auction section, either in watching or in your bidding section. If you were the WWD backorder holder, we still want to do the right thing for you. So while we can't point you to the auction and let you know the auction's going on, if I bought a WWD backorder and I bought it 6 months ago, and Wes and Brian bought GoDaddy backorders today, and the auction starts, I was the first person to buy a backorder, so I'm going to get the first bid. I'm not going to know that I'm actually bidding on the auction, but if I'm not outbid after the 10 days, if Brian and Wes don't bid or anybody else doesn't come in and bid, then I'm just going to get awarded that name. It's going to say, congratulations, you won the name. You got it when it expired. So while they might be different prices depending on what the reseller sets or the other things that you have to consider, you're looking at not getting notified for those reasons. So if you know about both companies and you want to get a name that expires in the GoDaddy group, then your best bet is to buy that backorder at GoDaddy so that you can take advantage of the notifications on the auction and actively bid on that name and get the discount mechanism.
And the WWD back orders do come into play with drop catches too as well. It's best practice is what I tell my customers is, and they really want, put a back order at GoDaddy as well as a WWD reseller if you can.
Right, and that's an important point that I wanted to bring up. So that's if it's the pre-release, if it's expired at GoDaddy. If the name gets past that day 43 at GoDaddy and nobody wanted it, nobody bought it along the way, or if it expired at another company and it went through their pre-release and nobody purchased it along the way, so it's going to go to the drop and it's actually going to get released for everybody to try and grab, then the back orders function in two different ways as well. On the GoDaddy side, our focus is to try and get our customers a name and give everybody a fair chance at getting that name. So if Brian and Wes put in a back order at GoDaddy, then everybody's trying to get that name, and I put in the back order at WWD, and the GoDaddy back order is the one that actually captures it from the registry when it's available. Then it's going to go to a private auction between just Brian and Wes on GoDaddy, and they're going to have a 3-day auction where they can compete to say, okay, who's gonna pay for this name, who's gonna win it. If whoever the first back order holder was is gonna get that first bid. Again, if there's no extra bids, first back order holder wins it. If there's more bids, then whoever has the highest bid wins. If there's a Wild West connection to the registry, we're gonna go grab that name, we catch it. Since there's no mechanism for us to auction that name off because we're not gonna point people to a GoDaddy branded site, then I just get the name. So we only allow one back order at WWD. First back order placed, locks it up. On GoDaddy, we allow multiple, so as many people want to back order the name can back order the name. So there is an advantage if the WWD back order catches the name. I don't have to go to an auction for it. It just grabs it and throws it in my WWD account, and I don't have to auction it, against anybody else. However, if a GoDaddy back order catches it, then I'm out of luck unless I have back orders at both places that I know about. I'll just bring this up real quick because we get a lot of questions about this, and again it goes back to our philosophy. We want to try and get everybody the name. Sometimes you'll see a WWD back order grab the name through our connection from WWD and it awards it to a GoDaddy holder. That's because nobody had a back order at WWD, but we want to try and use all of our chances to get the names for our customers that we can, and if we grab that name for you, then we're going to look and say, okay, we got it with a WWD connection. Does anybody at WWD have this name backward? No? Okay. Then we're going to put it to the GoDaddy backorder holder who had it. We're not just going to go try and grab names if we don't have anyone who backordered them, right? But if we do have somebody interested, we're going to try and use everything we can to try and grab that name for you.
You brought up a point that I wanted to bring back to sort of first-time users as well, and that was the private auction itself. And I remember getting a lot of questions about, well, I had a back order on this. How come everybody can see it on GoDaddy auctions? It only goes to a private auction if it was actually a pending delete and it was captured from the registry. It was dropped and we grabbed it. So anything that expired here still goes to a public auction. And that private auction, the only people that can participate in that are the people that had a back order prior to the capture. So like you said, if it's Wes and I that have the back order on that, there's no way that somebody could see that GoDaddy got it and then jump into that. That would be just between the two of us.
Right.
So, distinction. Do we want to open it up for questions? Do we have anything else we wanted to add?
I think, if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, we'll go over some other tips.
Looks like, so Scott had a question. He said, I feel in the past that some of the domains that I've watched in auctions automatically went into my GoDaddy back orders with a watching status. Does this ever happen, or did I do that manually?
There's nothing that would have automatically.
Unless there was multiple. Weren't you alluding when the back orders do show up in the watch section?
Well,
if there's two multiple back order purchases.
If he had a back order on it and moved to the walk, my understanding of that question was that he just looked at an auction and then it appeared in his watch list. Yeah, there's a way to flag it. Here we can actually. I was having technical difficulty pulling up the auctions earlier, but now it's back on, so we can. Take a look at that, and I guess I need to log in first.
You can see the icon there. Show. If you click that little eye by accident, it's going to throw it in your watch section.
All right, so this column here covers your watch list. So if you highlight the eyeball and you've logged in, it's going to move it to your watch section, which again will show up in your bidding list. Same as a back order if you were not the primary or original back order holder.
And domains in your watch section, I'd like to add, don't stay there forever. So they do get purged every once in a while.
So if you click that eyeball icon by accident, it's going to push it into your watch section. So another thing I think that's good to know is we get a lot of questions about when should I put my back order in. I'm interested in this name. I want to know when I should put it in. I think really the best answer for that is to put it in as soon as you can, because we're not going to show other people that there's a back order on the name until the auction actually starts for it. And the only way they're going to know that is they're going to see that there's a bid on the name, so they can sort by how many bids there are.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that your advantage is, in that case, hey, I want this name, I really want to get it. You should have the monitoring on it so that you know when it's going to go to auction and you're going to have that first bid, which will help you out. There's plenty of names that go through the auction with only one bid and wind up getting awarded to the person that had the back order on, so you might as well put the earliest back order in and have that advantage. If you're an investor and you want to put in your back order on the name, there's other companies that you go to and they show how many back orders are on a name. I was telling these guys, I get these emails from other companies that show what's the most back orders on a name, 50 and 100, and they'll show you, the most popular names of the day. And I know for a fact many people wait till the last second, and a lot of people wait till after those emails go out because they don't want to tip people off. They spend a lot of time and research saying, out of the 100,000 names that are out there, how many of these are valuable? I'm going to sort through them all, and I don't want to tip off everybody else. If I see that there's a lot of bids, I can just go in there and say, okay, yeah, there's a lot of back orders on this. It must be a good name. On GoDaddy, we don't do that. We don't publish any of that information. Like I said, if there's 10 back orders on the name, you're only going to see that first bid. So when you go in there and you sort by bid, you're going to see one bid, but you're not going to see that there's 10 back orders behind that. So there's not really a way to tip your hand like there might be at some of the other companies. So there's no real advantage to wait until the last minute. If you do want to wait so that they don't see that there's a bid, you can wait and still take advantage of the discount of the back order. But as soon as you put your back order on, as long as it's within those first 10 days, then it's going to show up if there's no other bids. If there's a bid, your back order is going to take that first bid and it's going to pop in there as a bid. So you're going to tip people off then. So I know that a lot of people have questions about the timing. When should they put all their bids in to make sure that their back orders in to make sure they're going to get it. Now that's for the pre-release. As far as the ones that are going to drop at the end of the cycle where it went through pre-release already, wherever it was, we don't have a way to show people how many back orders are in place for that. So there's no way for you to go publicly and sort through and see how many people back ordered a name that might be dropping. So in that case, it's to your advantage to put the back order in place whenever you can, because nobody's going to see that publicly, and that way you don't have to worry about if you're going to forget, you're not tipping off, you're not tipping your hand and showing other people. So I think if you're really looking at investing and you want to do some back orders as far as drop catch, to get names that are dropping, it's really to your advantage just to put the back order in then, and then after the name drops, if you catch it, great. If you don't catch it, you can just reassign that credit and use it again.
And also, we do award domains to second high bidders too, if for whatever reason the high bidder didn't pay. So it's, if you do get the email saying you're outbidded, I would just maybe still may have a slight chance of getting the domain if the first bidder doesn't pay. We'll always award it to the lower price to the second bidder.
It's not a lot, but it's worth keeping your bid in there.
Okay.
Do you want to discuss auto charges? Basically.
No.
No. All right.
In a follow-up to that demo you were showing, Scott just wants to know what counts as a view. So what would actually make it count as a view, I guess, to go into that category.
So it's okay. So it's not a unique viewer. It's literally anytime anybody has clicked on that domain and expanded it for whatever stats are in sight. So anytime somebody clicks on that. I knew my way around Hangouts. I do functions,
So that
just the act of expanding on it right there would count as a view. So
Okay.
so now, so Scott's question is, you've got the fields here. You have the age, which is how long the domain's been registered, the number of bids, and then the number of views. While we're taking a look at this, I also think that this is kind of a valuable, and this will go back to Joe's point about the auto extend and whether or not whether the auto extend comes into play. Bidders are identified by a bidder number, simply. So this one we're looking at here looks like 12 different bidders, and you can see the activity between bidder 10 and 12. So if we get into the final minutes of this one, and bidder 12 jumps in, but he doesn't trump bidder 10's proxy bid on this, then the auto extend would not come into play.
Mhm.
So, for a little.
And that's another good point that you bring up.
Is there
We
anything you want to look at while we're up? While we've got this up?
we choose to keep the bidders as numbers. Behind the scenes, we keep a really close eye on who's bidding and what they're doing, just to make sure that everything's a level playing field and people are being honest. And we want to keep everything fair. But on the front of the site, when you're going to bid, we made a conscious decision to just put bidder numbers in, so that you're not tipping your hand again. Paige asked the question. I saw a blog, or it was a video blog, where he was up against a couple other guys on the blog for evaluation, and they're all experts. And Paige, his valuation as far as what the names actually sold for was really solid, and he beat a couple of the other industry experts. Paige, is very well respected. If I find out what his bidding handle is, because I checked the who is on the name, who registered the name, and I know who his company is, or whatever the case may be, and I keep an eye on it, then I start to learn what he's bidding on, and I see his bids in there, and I go look for it, and I say, man, this guy really knows his stuff. He knows what's valuable. This name that he's bidding on must be valuable, so I'm going to go bid on it. We don't really think that's fair.
No.
So we keep the bids as numbers, so that you can go bid in the auction and be anonymous. We don't want to let people know that it's a Fortune 100 company that's going in there to bid on this name. We want to keep everybody at a level playing field. If this name's valuable to you, great, go bid on it. And if it's not valuable to you, then don't. If you have questions about how to bid or what things you can do, ask them, and we'll help out. But really, we keep that to try and keep everything a level playing field as well. We want to try and keep this a way for customers to get names that are going to be valuable to them, so that they can build their business on it. And at the end of the day, we want to get those names into the right hands.
So your bidder number is based solely on when you decided to participate
Right,
in it.
exactly.
If it was the case the first backward holder, their bidder number one,
Right.
that sort of thing. So you're not, that's static.
Mhm.
And, your bidder number is going to change with every auction you participate in.
Exactly. I think there's one thing that that's important to keep in mind too when you're looking to buy a name. So I'm looking to buy a great expired name. I'm selling speakers in Phoenix. So I think Phoenix Speakers is a great name, and I want to sell them. I want to sell speakers on that name. It's always good to kind of keep an eye on what was the name used for before, who had it, and what were they doing with it, rather than just go look and figure it out and say, yeah, this is the name I want to use. You want to try and keep an eye on what did people do before with it if you can. If they were sending out spam, or they had a site that's kind of questionable, maybe their business has some trouble with the Better Business Bureau. A lot of those things are available online. You could look those things up. And if you're going to invest in a name for your business, or you're going to try and resell that name, you want to look at a couple of the things that might have happened with the name before it expired, to know what you're getting yourself into after you buy the name. You might have a little bit of a harder time convincing people to buy your speakers if they look up the Better Business Bureau and find out that there's a lot of bad reviews that aren't even yours. Mm-hmm. So that's something to keep in mind when you're looking at what do you want to do with your business.
And should we stress that due diligence prior to bidding?
Yes,
sort of thing?
yes,
That's
you want to do that before you bid. Because after you bid, we're gonna hold you to it, and that goes back to keeping it a level playing field. We really want to make sure that when you're bidding, that it's fair for everybody across the board. So if I have a proxy bid in of $100 and you come in and bid 110, and then you go, wait a second, I don't want to do that, and everybody sees my proxy bid, that's not really fair to me. And we want to make sure that it's a fair playing field for everybody.
And you're not going to end up paying $110 for the domain. If that's the case, you'll get it at the original bid price.
Any other questions?
Any other questions, Cowan?
Yeah, we got one. Going back to the WWD comparison, in an expired domain auction, does the WWD back order show up as a $10 bid? And also, if it doesn't show up, will it go to the back order, or will it go to that back order before buy it now?
What'll happen with a WWD back order is if the WWD back order was purchased before any other back order, then it'll get the first bid. So basically, whoever buys the first back order, no matter where they buy it, gets the first bid. If Wes bought a GoDaddy back order a year ago and you bought the WWD back order 6 months ago, then you're not going to get that bid.
And it would open at $10.
It would open at $10, and it would give you that credit.
Did we switch that and maybe just get some clarification? Are we allowed multiple back orders with WWD?
No.
Yeah, so there's only one back order. So if there's already a back order used up, back order credit with the WWD seller account, you won't be able to purchase that back.
Right.
Doesn't look like there's any other questions coming in.
Questions? All right.
All right, then
Well,
I just think it's great that everybody tuned in. If you have questions, you can email me. My name is Joe Styler. My email is jstyler, S-T-Y-L-E-R, @godaddy.com, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. I think the expired domain names are great if you're looking to either invest or to build other avenues for sales for your business, as far as leads, or maybe if you're looking to start a new business. A lot of names that are valuable. Other people in your field might be going out of business, and let those go, and you can pick those up so that you can have a leg up on your competition. It's really an interesting place to go and look for names, and we're here to help you find a name that's going to fit.
And also, we do have the most domain names, so you're going to get the biggest inventory of really good domains.
And I'll get some resources put up on the Hangout page at the end of this. I know we've got some stuff that we can share with everyone on the timelines and all that as well. So, happy holidays, everybody, and
Thank
see
you.
you at the next one.
Thanks for coming.